Don't think I can quite say I need no introduction, to be honest. I'm working for Siemens, been a long-term attendee at this event for the last 9 years, not quite as long, I haven't done the full 10. Used to be very much focused on MES and now focused on that bigger picture for digitalization and the digital enterprise with regard to the life sciences industry and pharmaceutical. But today it's an MES conference, I want to dive into MES, and I thought I would wanted to talk about implementations and projects. Did ask our customer to come up on stage with me, but because the project's in progress, he said, no, you can do it on your own, Andy. So here I am on my own. So I'll talk about a project and also talk through some other stuff. Now, because the customer's not here, you'll also be subjected to something that I really learned during lockdown, during this last 18 months, which is where I've really honed my PowerPoint skills. So I'm hoping to impress you with lots of great animations, lots of nice colors and slides and stuff like that. And with a bit of luck, keep you awake and win that race against time that we have to get to the coffee break. So yes, the subject is revolutionizing, I just made up a new word there, revolutionizing MES global deployment and thinking about how we move from that classic approach to the collaborative approach. What I want to talk about is not just that, though. Yeah, I want to talk through about how there are different aspects and elements to that in terms of the modular cloud approach, the modular automation approach, about how the users are doing it, but also it's not just about going to that collaborative cloud approach. There's still a lot of mileage in the classic approach, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. As I mentioned earlier, I'm usually talking about digitalization from a bigger perspective, and MES being a real cornerstone as part of that. And this is usually my last slide, in fact, as the sort of the 3 key things that you need to be thinking about when you're thinking about how to practically implement digitalization. So through simulation and digital twins, through data and analytics, and also through collaboration. And I think that collaboration is the key to this part of the story, if you like, the key to this part of my presentation. So this is about that collaborative approach, that cloud approach, using new technology to enhance collaboration even more. I had to be the guy in the conference here to bring the Lego bricks. Normally, there's somebody bringing Lego bricks. It's the first time I've used Lego bricks in a presentation, believe it or not. But I couldn't think of a better analogy for that classic approach, where you've got those individual bricks that you're trying to piece together. The customer that I'm talking about here, this is the example we've been working with, was very much plant to plant. So it's a global company with many plants, thinking about going plant by plant, taking 18 to 24 months per plant to do his or her MES implementation, needing, as hopefully I'm sure many of you are aware here, a lot of local expertise, infrastructure, and it's a very IT-focused project. As you move that forward into so that's sort of 10 years ago. In the last 5 years, we've seen a real knowledge towards a movement towards core models. So similar plants, multiple plants with similar characteristics. It was touched on a little bit earlier as well. Transferring knowledge between teams, having that core model on which you can build your implementation and have some kind of a global team, a global network that's going around and implementing that, some kind of task force or something like that. Seeing a little bit more business because it's a much more global approach a little bit more involvement from the business. As then you move on to this more modular approach. And the key to this modular cloud approach, which I'm trying to sort of explain or today, and I sort of touched on it last year in our presentation, or my colleague Nicolas did, is to think about this finding commonality, common libraries, common applications, a common framework, centralized deployment. That's not new. That's not new to MES. That's not new to our world. But using the cloud to enhance that collaboration is. Using the tools that are there today to be able to do that is. And it's not just about a framework, a SharePoint, or whatever it might be. It's about really enhancing and thinking of multiple people from multiple places in the globe, from multiple companies to come together to form this collaboration approach. And as I said, the cloud being a key part of that. So those last 3 slides, just in summary, as we move from the classic to the core model to the cloud approach, the thing that I didn't mention there, and maybe some of you picked up on, is the reuse that you're seeing at the bottom there, the pie chart or the camembert, as they call it in France, and whatever, the cheese, the big cheese, in terms of the reuse that you can use. And having more reuse through more standardization enables you to deploy, when you're talking about a global project, a lot faster. So how do we do that, or how is this project going, and how does that work? It's very much around the concept of an ecosystem, led by Siemens with the customer, but also very, very active, and probably they needed bigger boxes, to be honest, because they're really driving that, are the system integrators, the consultants, and the technology partners. I don't know how many companies there are, 4 or 5, maybe even a few more, that are selected a little bit by everybody in terms of building this infrastructure together, depending on the locality, depending on the specific technology, where we can build this real framework, if you like, this modular cloud approach or framework in the cloud with standardized libraries and infrastructure, guidelines, if you like, and methodologies from our side, and then from the customer side, thinking very much about what is the business reasons, where am I doing it, what's the order, this type of stuff. So the modular MES package, or this framework, if you like, is around being able to use an academy, using, Polarion is a requirements analysis software, to be able to standardize the way that you're gathering and rolling out those requirements through documentation, libraries, and then this forum. Train, assemble, train the people, assemble the requirements, if you like, together, and then go through the validation and go live, plant by plant, but quickly. Learn how, in less than 6 months, to be able to self-assemble your own MES. It's an image that I'm not so sure I'm comfortable with, to be fair, about self-assembling an MES, but it's very much around spreading the responsibility, spreading the ability for people to be able to do that with very strong guidance and framework, yeah? Using those existing libraries and modules and so on and so forth. The other key is to leverage the technology that's there now to be able to do remote deployments, to no longer need local IT infrastructure or administration when you're talking about smaller plants or further away plants where that IT knowledge or that team isn't there. And probably even more important these days where traveling becomes even more challenging. So yeah, so thinking about that self-assembly made me think of IKEA, so I sort of got that picture from IKEA there just to try and illustrate this idea of what that ecosystem would be about. And this slide really just details a bit more all the different aspects behind that. So we have the training program, the academy, as it were, where we have the training and the methodology, which is run by one of our partners. The infrastructure, in terms of a standardized infrastructure for the deployment and the execution, the way that you're going to be managing data and be presenting that and visualizing that, contextualizing that. The applications I'll come back to later, and the members and the community I'll come back to in a minute. And then this idea of standardized sort of social media project management, and most importantly, of course, validation. So thinking about the community, that's the next part, is to really think about who would be in that community and how you divide that, regardless of whether they're a customer person, a Siemens person, or a third party. And as I said, there are multiple third-party integrators involved here. So as experts, as local super users, as global super users, as integrators for the specific plant, and so on. And that's quite classic, really, in terms of the different stratifications that you would have of the people who are inputting or responsible, let's say, within a deployment. But again, what's important is about having this common way to share experience. You know, I mean, we saw the presentation this morning. Most of us saw the presentation this morning, right? Communication, communication, communication. Yeah, culture, people. It's about that, right? So again, not new, but having and using technology as a framework to be able to do that can then give you those benefits to be able to do it more quickly and more efficiently and enhance that communication. So then thinking about the actual application, you need to, what we've also done with this customer is been thinking in the co-creation mode about new ways in which they can actually access and interface with the MES itself. And want to introduce you, probably not introduce you because I did talk about it briefly last year again, are the suites we call the eBatch suite regarding apps, which are available on the App Store and on the Google Play Store, for review, for operation, and for Logbook. And you don't even need to take photographs. You can come and see us at the booth, and we can give you a demonstration. You can even touch it and feel it. You can even download it on your phone but it won't be much good because you won't have the username and password. But we can give you the username and password, and you can actually do an e-batch review with my colleagues there to actually see how that would actually look from a review perspective. So the three elements to that, as I mentioned, the operator, the review, and the manager, so a unification of this app suite to be able to access and control that critical data through those different devices. The other great thing about using phones and using your own devices, but using devices, is that authentication aspect as well. So you can access your company data. Yeah, you have, I don't know, I'm assuming you have, because we certainly have it within Siemens and our customers have it as well. You have IT infrastructure. It allows you to use your device as a secure device, which authenticates you and allows you to be able to do that. And that biometric authentication is a great way to do that and use the technology there. Starting with review, what does that actually look like? The real-time information available, as I said, we can show this there, but being able to rethink about what review actually might mean, and similar to the presentation we talked about this morning as well, about having that information available from the different data sources. So this is pulling it directly, by the way, from the MES. Other data is perhaps transiting via the MES or being brought in with the MES as the central sort of data hub, for want of a better word, and then we're able to produce or replicate, if you like, the functionality from the classic review that you would have on a PC, but being able to pull out the information needed for review. So real-time information regarding the status of the batch, what needs to be done, what needs to be reviewed, and then actually being able to do the batch release from your mobile remote device. So we can paint that picture of your QA person on the beach in the Bahamas being able to do his e-batch review, but I don't know if any quality people even go to the Bahamas, let alone that would even be something they would, but obviously it's not going to get to that far, but it's that flexibility, and that's the way that this technology that's coming together is used. And it's an important part, again, of the implementation when we're going back to this case study that I'm talking about. As I move towards the execution and a view from an operator, this is something we're starting to implement as well, is being able to use those devices within the plant. And again, using remote devices, in fact. I remember when I was first talking with MES 10, 15 years ago, someone was saying to me how just the ability to have tablets and mobile laptops even that were remote, because the technology had been there, but you couldn't actually put it onto the shop floor because people couldn't interface with the data in the same way then as they can. And of course, now this goes even further. But this is a little bit more, and I'll just go a step forward just to give you a little bit of a look and feel. And again, we can show this. My colleague, Laurent, has this on a laptop at the stand there, so you can sort of get into a bit more detail about what that actually looks like and how that actually feels. But the point here is this isn't just an emulation of your Windows screen. It's been worked on with our UX designers from our apps or our digital enterprise team to be able to provide an application which meets the requirements from a user perspective of how I would want to interact with as an operator, as a I was going to say an executor, but you're not an executor, are you, when you're doing that? And of course, there are many different parts to the application. It doesn't have all of, I must admit, it doesn't have necessarily all of the different elements, when you come to weighing and so on and so forth, but there are many of the traditional, if you like, paper to glass, and many of the different elements and recordings that you need to be doing from a manual perspective that you can use this as an interface to do. And at the same time, using direct or native integration from other sources, from automation, from LIMS systems, whatever. The other part that we've also been working on is the logbook. And this is, again, related to a request coming directly from the customer project that I'm talking about now, is being able to actually use that MES data to have an interactive and remotely accessible logbook. So for me, logbook was often not overlooked, but was often something that we could always do and we could always produce, but was never really that core requirement. And again, this was something as part of the new implementation with this team that we are developing and are piloting now to be able to access those logbooks. Now, again, does your production manager want to be accessing the room equipment logbook from his beach, let's say somewhere else, in the south of France? Perhaps not, but it's that ability to be able to access it from anywhere in the plant, but also across sites, across geographies, and so on when you're looking for information and gathering that. The idea here is really just about portability and usability, not for global remote access. Related then to that is the other part, which I mentioned at the sort of the beginning, is that implementation infrastructure. I don't want to go into too much detail on that here, partly because I can't, because I'm not the technical architecture guy, but you've got to look at, and this is what we're seeing here in this implementation, is a balance between on-premise, the traditional sort of on-premise implementations, hybrid, where we're seeing a remote, just the whole application being hosted remotely, which we've done in a number of different plants over the last 4 or 5 years, to now being actual really pure cloud software as a service type implementations. And that's something that we're starting to pilot, to be able to do that and to have that. In fact, we're not starting to pilot, we're actually implementing, to be able to have that flexibility and that speed to be able to do that. Moving on from MES towards that integration with the automation part. And what I wanted to just highlight again, so now I'm moving away from the global project, because this isn't implemented there, just to be super sort of clear, disclaimer if you like, but it's a very important part when we're thinking about collaboration and ways in which we're using data, in which we're using the information that we have available to be able to integrate our equipment even better. And this, probably should have shown it on the previous slide, is the result of a collaboration with Sartorius. Everyone knows Sartorius, yeah? I guess, the bio equipment manufacturer. So very much focused on the bioreactor space, where we're working with them directly with our controllers, with our equipment controllers from the automation side. Now, what you'll traditionally see from the MES perspective in terms of an integration with automation will either be a integration through an MES and a DCS through the batch recipe, what we see on the left. First of all, the interface to the DCS, and then the interface from the DCS down to the equipment, at the equipment level. Or, what you can see, which we also see and we also implement, and so do the other companies as well, is using OPC to use a direct connection with a direct piece of equipment. I'm not going to talk about that, OPC connection, we've talked about that before, and in fact, that number one, that batch integration layer, I was trying to work out, but I couldn't. I think I presented that 4 or 5 years ago. This isn't new, yeah? But what is new is the modular part, the MTP part, and let me just come to that. So the traditional approach, which again, as I said, 4 or 5 years, this has been presented, or for many, in terms of the conventional approach of an MES and a DCS sitting together, often 2 operator screens. Yeah, and it seems, I don't know, is that inconceivable? How many of you have an MES screen and a DCS screen running as separate screens, right? It's not that complicated to bring the MES onto the DCS in terms of a visualization. Then you need to think about bringing the information from the DCS in to be able to actually run and orchestrate that recipe. Yeah? So when we talk about this modular approach, we're thinking about different ways in which we can send, so first of all, the visualization combined, and then different ways in which we can be integrating the data, let's say, from the DCS to the MES in a continuous way, whether that's from the execution, whether that's information coming from my DCS into my MES to be able to do my batch approval, or whether it's even at the design phase where I'm designing a global recipe, an integrated global recipe for MES and DCS at the same time without having to configure 2 separate systems. Yeah? So again, something perhaps not so unfamiliar to many of you, but worth sort of thinking about as we build up to then this newer approach that we're now thinking of, where we extend that, where through that integration, we're now able to go even down a level further by rather than the remote I/O integration, which we sort of just were talking about, is to actually have that integration already on the module. So within the control of the equipment, so provided directly in our work with the equipment vendor here, in this case Sartorius, you're able to provide a sort of integrated MES directly onto the equipment. It's not quite as simple as an MES on the box on that piece of equipment, but it's about that being able to thread that through from the top to the bottom. Yeah? And it means that the specifications and the testing doesn't need to be done. It means that in the project implementation, you're able just to, all you're needing to do is a simple type of sequencing, and of course, as we say here, reduce the engineering effort. And this is something that we're bringing to many people today with our, as I said, with our collaboration with Sartorius. But it's not just with Sartorius that we're doing this, and it's not just with Siemens that this is going on as well. This integration is something called MTP. How many people are familiar with MTP? So not so many of you, right? MTP, Modular Type Package, is an initiative for modularization in terms of being able to work in a standardized way between the equipment and the control system. And again, I'm not the expert on this topic. I've spoken about it a lot. There are many people who are very, very qualified on that. This is coming, by the way, sorry, out of the German NAMUR organization. And it's being very much driven through ISPE, driven through Bioforum as a standard in which, and I think I've seen that, other companies as well talking about that today, in terms of a standard way in which we can integrate and use equipment much, much more quickly. And this then allows us to move towards flexible manufacturing, or something called plug and play or plug and produce. Yeah? So I know some people prefer to call it plug and produce, some people prefer to call it plug and play. What do you prefer, Christian? I think we know the ISP, it's plug and produce, right? So, and then Bioforum, they talk about plug and play. But it's that simple concept of plugging something in and it's being recognized immediately. Is that clear? Yeah? So maybe make it even clearer. This is an example of plug and play, of a fast-track COVID production for a company in Marburg. So BioNTech took over that plant last November from Novartis. They've refitted it, and one of the parts of that has been the bioreactors. Perhaps it's a little bit tenuous in terms of the MES part here, to be fair, but what is a classic MES challenge? I really like this passage from the guy who did the project. One of 6 reactors is moved to one of 4 possible clean rooms, and the contents is transferred to one of 30 possible single-use mixers. Classic MES. How do I manage all those different choices? How do I know where the reactor's been put, in which room, and where that material has been put? So, of course, you can have your processes. You can do that very manually. Yeah, you can say if it goes, you know, you understand. We all understand workflows. But the solution is thanks to MTP and Profinet, you're able to plug in the vessels, and we know exactly where that's been plugged in. And then we know exactly where that material is being produced. And that's what MES automation integration is about, is being able to solve those types of challenges. And I'll come back to the BioNTech Marburg project a little bit later. But it's a very important part as we're thinking about modular and collaborative approaches to manufacturing. For me, that's very, very key. In the interest of time, I'm not going to talk about user operability. For me, it's very much a product aspect, and I don't really want to talk about that. We have been extensively working with NIMI, talked about this last year, with the biometric band, but like many companies already today, and also we extend those apps into the visualization through virtual reality to be able to, augmented reality to be able to do that. But why do you want to do that? And this is where I want to talk about the examples. So here is a personalized medicine company from the Boston area, a company called Vericell, who are making skin. They're growing skin basically from skin cells, and they're growing them individualized. But all of the operators are working in individual cabinets, yeah? So not the picture on the left, but the picture on the right. Yeah, look at that line. So great, yeah, they're using the electronic system, and they've got all these tablets or workstations in which they're able to follow the workflow and do everything that we want an MES to do. But there's a much better way, we think, to do that, and that's what we start to work on with them in terms of being able to keep your hands inside that vessel, to be able to operate remotely through voice, through recognition, and through augmented reality. And that's the next step of that particular project there in terms of being able to ensure guidance and recording the information as you're working in a biosafety cabinet. So I mentioned earlier, I'm talking about a new approach. Maybe I talked about it a little bit quickly, but I was thinking about this, and I thought I can't leave it there because the classic approach is still important. I don't want people thinking, oh, we're just here to talk about this newfangled cloud approach. The classic approach still has its place because not every company has 40, 50, 60 different plants that they want to implement an MES to quickly. They have single plants. They might be very big. They might be very specific in terms of a modality, in terms of the type of product, but you've got very different types. And so a single sort of classic approach product, it still has its validity. A couple that I just want to sort of talk through. It's in terms of this end-to-end supply. So the first would be the Bayer Bitterfeld in the so close to Leipzig, biggest, if not one of the biggest, if not the biggest. I don't know if anyone can contradict me on this. What is the biggest pharma plant in Europe? I don't think it's this one, by the way, but No? Maybe Astra in Sweden, but this is certainly one of the largest tablet production facilities, built in the early 1990s after the political change, which is very, very present as I've been in Berlin for the weekend, thinking about that a lot, to be fair. And so it was built as a modern factory in the early 1990s, and we can all imagine how by the 2010, 20 years later, it's no longer a modern, spanking, brand new factory. It's all that automation, that Industry 3.0, as it wasn't called then, right? But as we call it now, it's starting to come out of date. And so they needed to really bring this integrated automation and DCS approach. And I don't want to go on about it too much because I could, and I don't have the time, but it's just really that idea of that integrated automation, MES being able to trigger and manage a whole recipe from end to end, yeah? And we see the different elements there. Another project I want to highlight is the implementation at Marburg in Germany with BioNTech. So I don't know whether that was a very German story in terms of Angela Merkel, God rest her soul, I suppose we have to say now, but who said last year, Marburg makes the difference. It was where they took the factory, so they took this Novartis factory in November, and within 5 months they converted that into the messenger RNA factory. So from a classic flu vaccine factory, in 5 months they refitted it. They refitted the automation with this type of equipment. This is a photo from the plant, from BioNTech. And also they added in an MES system. So it's quite normal, right? A brand new automation MES system in 5 months. That's how long it takes, yeah? That's how long it usually takes you guys, right, to do these types of projects. So, of course, it's an exceptional time. It was an exceptional project. We had this challenge of bringing together 22 Siemens people, let alone all the other people I talked earlier about ecosystem and infrastructure, to bring together the engineering for that, to be able to move from a very rigid process to a mobile process, to be able to move the information from the automation into the MES to enable that type of batch release and to be able to do the guidance and control of the operators and have the information needed for true review by exception. So, you know, they're not thinking about cloud modular approach. They want to just get the product out as quickly as possible. And so do we, or so did we at that time, yeah? So, and I think we were very happy that they were able to do that. So a really, really interesting way. And again, the classic approach still has its merits. So in summary, what I really wanted to bring this back to is how digitalization, and we talked about digital transformation, there's many, many more elements I can talk about when we're talking about digitalization as such. But the thing to remember is that digitalization and MES being a heart of that enables fast and confident decisions. I mentioned right at the beginning that the slide I used is usually my last slide. Actually, this is usually my first slide to get people thinking about digitalization. The irony came to me yesterday when I was preparing the slides, because it's quite a nice way to think about what digitalization really means. It's about being able to make those decisions. And digitalization and what we're talking about and what we've all been talking about today in the different speeches is enabling people to make those decisions in the way that we now come. I don't know how I'd have got here without my phone, to be honest, yeah? Who was talking? I was talking as well earlier. I had in the summer, yeah, someone was talking about I was in Disneyland, Paris, and I asked the guy for a map. I said, no, we don't have maps. You have to do it all on your phone now. Yeah, here, the agenda, it's all online, right? So we're all used to that. It's all very, very normal for us, yeah, to have that. But why is that not there in the plant? Why is that not the daily bread and butter, if you like, of those operators as they're having to make those decisions? It's coming. It's there in a lot of places, but there's still a long way to go. We know this, yeah, to be able to implement that, the different technologies that we talk about, to be able to make those fast and confident decisions based on real data, based on data that we know, with the data integrity and the data quality is there, as we heard from this morning. Finally, the final slide really is just to talk about how that comes up in terms of what that means in terms of making those fast and confident decisions. And it's that stack of being able to connect the data all the way through from top to bottom or from bottom to top, and from top to bottom as well, why not, yeah? From OT to IT, from the sensors, from the pieces of equipment at the bottom, from the plant, up through your business systems, through cloud, through edge computing, to be able to then take that information and visualize that through specific apps, through specific visualizations, such as we've heard about today, through low-code development, through low-code apps, which is certainly, I think, one of the next big things that we're going to be seeing. We talked about the next big things in the next 4 or 5 years. it's already been apparent to me in terms of the visualization is much more of a topic this year than it's been in the past, yeah, of what we're talking about in the MES world. So that's me. That's my story. I hope it's been interesting. I hope it's been relevant. And thanks to those of you at home watching. But if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them now.
All right, Andy, thank you. So you're eating up a bit of time.
I was bang on.
Come on, yeah, 30 minutes, but not including questions.
Oh, okay. Well, no one ever asks me questions, yeah. Yeah.
So.
Sorry, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I allow one question. Any question for Andy?
You see?
Was too good overview.
Now, either you've scared them off by telling them
don't scare them off.
my time is up.
It's one question. I mean, you can run for it.
No, it's okay. We're available, happy to interact. There's 5 or 6 of us here today, talking as well with the tech ops guys around the asset performance stuff. So happy to, there's a lot more to what we can talk about too than what I just showed today. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. And before